In episode 5, Aang, Katara, and Sokka continue on their way to the Northern Water Tribe, and they get really close to the border of the Fire Nation. For Katara, she's pumped up about it because she feels like if she runs into some waterbending masters, it'll really take her game to the next level. She's been improving steadily up until this point. As they're discussing all of this, they're flying over vast forest life, and then they see that the forest has been charred. They have to go down to investigate. Upon closer inspection, they confirm that it was the Fire Nation. For Aang especially, he feels really guilty. He feels like he should have stopped this, even though there probably was no way to stop it. But right now, Aang is just spread too thin. So anytime he sees any destruction, he blames himself. And as Aang is beating himself up, Sokka sees the little girl out in the corner hiding behind a tree. He's concerned for her, so he starts to talk to her a little bit, console her. But then she runs away, and when she does that, she drops her doll. So Sokka, Aang, and Katara, they run after her to return it. And they run right into her village. At first, her dad is pretty concerned because these outsiders have just shown up with his daughter's doll. But he quickly realizes that Aang, Sokka, and Katara aren't a threat. He explains to all of them that the Fire Nation did what they saw to the forest. But they didn't do it out of some war. They did it to clear a path to move their way up the mountain, just to make life easier. But after the fire, really strange things started happening. Crops started dying, animals stopped grazing. It's almost like the land itself was sick. A few days ago, the village sent out an expedition to look for food, but that group hasn't been seen since, and that group included this little girl's brother. Guy starts talking about how he's worried that these people are gone forever, but Aang says, you know what? I think I know where they are, and I can get them back. He starts walking in the forest with Katara and Sokka, and he starts explaining to them that the world that they live in isn't the only world. There's the spirit world as well. Think of like soul and body. Now, usually these two worlds remain separate, but there are places that the barrier is very thin. And Aang can sense that this forest is one of those places. He feels like the fires weaken the barrier even more. And the Avatar is the bridge between the natural world and the spirit world. So he should be able to go into the spirit world, find these people, and bring them back. Now it's just a matter of finding where the energy is the strongest. So Aang continues to walk, and he finds a place that's in the forest. It's all charred up. And there are wooden statues of different animals. Aang hops on a boulder, sitting in front of a huge bear statue, and he starts to focus, trying to harness the energy to go into the spirit world. Now, as he's doing that, Zuko is still on the hunt for him. One of his men had heard about people breaking ice in a place where ice doesn't exist. That's fishy, so Zuko wants to go investigate it. By himself. He's still terrified that word will get out the Avatar's back, and it'll ruin any chance he has of taking the throne. When Zuko and Iroh arrive in the little village where Katara, Sokka, and Aang were, they're greeted with a lot of nasty looks because they're obviously Fire Nation people. Now, this village doesn't belong to the little girl and the father who sent Aang on this mission to go capture the people from the spirit world. This is a previous stop-off. But it's a stop that isn't too far away from Aang. And with the right information, Zuko absolutely could capture Aang. Now it's just a matter of getting that information, though. He tries to get that information by going to a local tavern and paying a guy, asking if he's seen any waterbenders. And the guy hasn't. But he did hear about the Avatar returning, and the Avatar is with some waterbenders. This news doesn't excite Zuko. He's actually pretty pissed off about it, because clearly word has gotten out about the Avatar. He knows what this means. There's blood in the water, and it's only a matter of time before the sharks show up. And as he's complaining to Iroh about this, one of the sharks that he speaks of is right in front of him. It's a bounty hunter. Her name is June, and she's an incredible bounty hunter. But the fact that she's a bounty hunter turns Zuko off. He wants nothing to do with her, even though she is quite attractive. Anyway, while Zuko can't see the forest of the trees in this situation, Iroh can. He slips away from Zuko, and he hires June to help them find the Avatar. More than anybody there, she could help them the most, because if she doesn't find people, she doesn't get paid. If she doesn't get paid, she doesn't eat. So while Zuko doesn't want anything to do with her, he's going to be stuck with her, because June might be his best option of finding what he's looking for. Zuko, though, still is pouting a little bit, so Iroh pulls him aside and says, look, I know you've always thought that there's a right way and a wrong way of doing things, and I respect that, but out here it's different. And Commander Zhao is already making moves against us. so we have to be ready. And it's true. I mean, the correspondence between Zhao and Princess Azula continues. And Azula is sticking to her word. She's going to bat for Commander Zhao, trying to get him more. She approached her father about this, praising Commander Zhao, saying how he's the one who found the Avatar, he needs more men, he needs more assets. And the king does agree that they should reward Commander Zhao, but as Azula was walking away, he says, by the way, Zhao didn't find the Avatar, your brother did. Your brother was the one who was steadfast and dedicated. That's what I expect from a future heir. Not self-serving flattery and coy whispers. And that sets Azula off. This girl has so much anger festering inside of her. Now, while Zuko was finding a bounty hunter, against his will, Aang was able to tap into the spirit world. What he didn't realize, though, was when he went in, he dragged both Katara and Sokka with him. And that's super dangerous. As they walk across the path trying to figure out what they're going to do, they come across a giant owl. I mean, this thing is towering above them. He is the spirit of knowledge itself, and the thing is, only Aang can hear him. Both Katara and Sokka can't understand a word that this owl is saying. And he tells them just how dangerous it is to have both Katara and Sokka in this world. They're not supposed to be there. And while he's nice, there's other animals in there and other spirits and other monsters that aren't going to be so nice. So just watch your back. Aang tells the owl that all he wants is to find their missing friends and get out. And the owl says, well, there's a hut down the road, just follow it, maybe they'll have some answers. So the group starts heading down that road, and it doesn't take long for them to experience their first monster. I mean, this thing is huge, it's terrifying, it will keep me up at night, and it attacks them. They do notice on this monster that there is a scar, and it mirrors a scar that was on one of the giant statues from the forest. So they figure that those statues must mirror monsters from the spirit world. It throws all of them back. And when it does that, they all go to a separate kind of world. But those worlds are different memories for the group. Before Sokka even goes into that memory, he has to have a conversation with a talking fox, which is completely normal at this point. And it's the fox that explains to Sokka that the monster that attacked him is just simply in pain, and that he himself should understand what it's like to be in pain. After a quick conversation, the fox ends it, saying, you should probably go. But as she leaves, Sokka notices a sort of bracelet-like item on one of her tails. As Sokka continues, he goes into that dream memory state, and the memory is him on the day of his ice-dodging trials. His father was there, his grandfather was there. It was a really proud day for him, even though he kind of struggled in those trials. But when he leaves, he overhears a conversation between his father and his grandfather, and his father only passed him because it's his son. But he didn't have a lot of faith in Sokka, and because of it, Sokka felt like crap. Now, as for Katara, her memory wasn't much better. Her memory was also with her parent, but it was with her mother. And at first, she's really excited about it. It's with her mother, her grandmother. She's back to being reunited with them. But then the firebenders show up, and they start tearing the entire village apart, looking for other benders. And Katara's mother knows that Katara is a bender, but she doesn't want to give up her daughter. So instead, she tells the firebender, hey, I'm one of the benders that you're looking for. And right in front of Katara, Katara's mother is lit up. It's a really traumatic experience for her. Both Katara and Sokka are snapped out of it by this sort of monster with a China doll-like face. And this monster was the one that the owl was talking about. His name is Ko, and he's a face stealer. He preys on people with fear and doubt, so that kind of fits the description of both Sokka and Katara. He takes people to his lair, and he just waits to feed on them. And when he does feed, their souls are lost forever. The thing is, no one's ever been able to defeat him. Only Avatar Roku got the better of him. So defeating Ko is not going to be easy. And as for Aang, he also has a memory, but before he does, he runs into Ko. Ko gives him a vision of home for Aang, but Aang quickly realizes that it isn't real. And that's when Ko knows that he's talking to the Avatar. But he's met a bunch of Avatars before, so meeting a kid like Aang is no big deal. Ko actually brags to Aang about how a previous incarnation of the Avatar tried to kill him, but he was unsuccessful. And Aang can't figure out why an Avatar would try to kill such a thing, and he quickly realizes, oh yeah, it's probably because he steals faces, and he's not that nice of a guy, and his place is disgusting. Ko tells him that he's probably returned to give back what he stole from him, but Aang says, I don't know what you're talking about. All I'm here for is my friends. And Ko says, why would I let you play with my food? He then starts chasing Aang all throughout his lair, and Aang ends up avoiding Ko and heading straight to that hut with the old man that the owl had talked about. And that old man is Gyatso. Right away, Aang says this has got to be another illusion, but Gyatso says no, it's really me. He gives Gyatso a big hug and he starts to believe, yeah, maybe this is real. But he asks Gyatso, how is this even possible? Gyatso tells him that when everybody died, most moved on in the Great Cycle, but he chose a different path. Aang can't figure out why he didn't go on to the next stage of enlightenment, but Gyatso says, I couldn't. I know you would need me. And Aang admits he does need him. In the moment, he's kind of going through it, because everybody needs the Avatar, but he doesn't know what to do. Aang starts telling him how Avatar Kyoshi told him that there was something going on in the north, but he doesn't know what to do, how to stop it. And Gyatso says, you know a lot more than you think. Aang shakes his head and says, I doubt that. I mean, how am I supposed to save the world if I can't even save? And that's when he remembers that his mission was to save his friends, but he got distracted by this conversation with Gyatso. That's when Gyatso talks about the fog of lost souls. About Ko, he informs him on how difficult it is to defeat him, how other avatars have tried. If Aang wants to get information on how to beat Ko, he's going to have to get to Avatar Roku. The problem with that is Roku's temple is on the Fire Nation side. Aang goes to leave, but before he does, Gyatso stops him and says, I just want to let you know, there was nothing you could have done for us. If you had stayed, you would have died too. Don't beat yourself up over what happened to the Airbenders. You couldn't have done anything for us. It's not your fault. He then tells Aang goodbye, and Aang snaps out of the spirit world. He's back in that burnt forest. If he wants information on Roku, all he has to do is open up Zuko's journal with all the information on the avatars. So at least he knows where to go. But he's going to have to go it alone. He's not risking injuring Momo or Appa. He then grabs his glider and flies off to find that temple. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.